My third point relates to the succession. Will Charles succeed the Queen? And there are corollaries. Will Australia then become a republic? And what will the title be of Camilla? Will she be Queen of Australia? So I come to that third point, the succession. And I would say to you, in relation to the succession of Charles, that provided that he survives the Queen, provided that he is in good health, there's no question of skipping a generation, as they say. It just will not happen. There are opinion polls which, of course, suggest that some people, perhaps a large number of people, think that William would be a better king, or more appropriate as the king. I was on a Channel 7 breakfast program a year or so ago, and I was asked this. There were Republicans present and a number of people on the panel. And I said to them, when they asked me about an opinion poll which suggested that William was favoured over Charles, I told them that it might come as a surprise to them, but young and handsome men are in greater demand than people of my generation. And it's obvious that in a poll you're going to get that result. That is a conclusion that you must have. So Charles will definitely succeed. He will not abdicate unless he is in poor health. William would not be involved in a deal to skip a generation. He's made that quite clear. Charles will be the next king, provided that he is available at the time. Will Australia become a republic? The politicians now suggest this. This is because polling has been telling, private polling, and they do this all the time, at your cost. Private polling has told them for some time that this is an issue they just should not touch. And the proof of this is quite clear that when the present government was formed, after the last election, Bob Brown could have had anything he wanted from Julia Gillard. He certainly got her to break a promise she made about not having a carbon dioxide tax. If he had asked for a referendum, if he had asked for a plebiscite, she would have given it to him immediately. Why didn't he ask for this? He was the most passionate, to use the word Republicans use, he was the most passionate Republican in the Parliament. He proposed numerous pieces of legislation to achieve a plebiscite or something else to further the Republic. He had not. Why had he not done that? He had not done it, I'm sure, because polling told him not only not to touch this subject, but that if you did, the vote would be so overwhelming, the question of a republic would be off the agenda for 100 years. So the politicians know this, so they hide behind the silly argument that at the end of this reign, we can then come to the question of a republic. The Republicans think it's the silver bullet, something which will deliver a politician's republic to them without them having to do anything. It certainly won't. The Republicans are gradually coming to the realization that this is rubbish. Even the standard bearer of the Republic, the Sydney Morning Herald, in a recent editorial has admitted, conceded, that a republic will not necessarily follow a demise in the crown, the end of this reign. The succession is not a silver bullet. We could have told them, as we frequently did, that what will end, at the very sad end of this reign, is that there will be a media retrospective which will put in the shade the media interest in the royal wedding. It will be so thorough, so enormous. It will be about what they will call the Second Elizabethan Age. It will dominate the world's media because they will be fascinated in what is indeed one of the most fascinating reigns of any monarch in any time. And then the media will move on to the next piece of fascination, and that is the coronation. the coronation and the anointing, going back to King David. The only coronation in the modern world, no other monarchs are crowned and anointed as our sovereign is. It's a very special ceremony, a very important ceremony, a sacred ceremony, and it will fascinate the whole world. And then there will be fascination and interest in the next Prince of Wales, and not only in the next Prince of Wales, but in the children of the next Prince of Wales and the children, one assumes there will be children, of Prince Harry, assuming that he will be married. Now that is something which quite clearly is the magic of monarchy. The Republicans don't understand this. They don't understand that monarchy replaces itself, renews itself constantly, and this is a wonderful thing. I come now to Camilla. I always felt that once she emerged from the shadows, people would accept her. Once she was, while she was there in the shadows, unmarried and a woman who was half there and half wasn't, there would always be questions about her. But once she emerged, people came to accept her. Of course, there will always be people who still attack her. Recently, the Sydney Morning Herald published a letter by a former member of the Legislative Council, Mrs. Franco Arena. Now, Franco Arena was famous, celebrated in the Legislative Council for making accusations behind parliamentary privilege which were just not justified, which were just not supported. And she did that on several occasions. Her letter was nasty and vindictive, and the editor of the Sydney Morning Herald should not have published it.
She's a nutter.
But her talk of adultery reminded me of King George IV. King George IV secretly married, he was fascinated and obsessed with a woman, Mrs. Fitzherbert. And he had to secretly marry her because she was a Catholic. And the law proscribed marriage at the time to Catholics, as it still does, but that is being changed. So he married her secretly by bribing an Anglican clergyman to perform the ceremony. Later, he did have a marriage. They looked for a princess to marry, and they found a princess in Germany, Princess Caroline, and she was brought to England. Now, Princess Caroline was not noted for her charms, her appropriately long toilette, as they delicately put it in the journals. She wasn't a very attractive lady, and but she said later, when the marriage broke down, she said later, when she was accused of adultery, she said that the only time that she had ever committed adultery was when she slept with Mrs. Fitzherbert's husband. Mrs. Fitzherbert was the lady who married the king. Well, that marriage did break down. Just incidentally, when she was brought to England and actually in person introduced to the prince embraced her, then went away and sat down in an armchair, seemed exhausted, and said to one of his servants, "Harris, I'm not well, pray get me a glass of brandy." And she said later, "Is he always like this? I find him very fat and not at all as handsome as he was in his portrait." That marriage did not work, and they slept together one night and never slept together again. And the king produced a bill. In those days, to divorce, you had to have an Act of Parliament. So an Act of Parliament was introduced, and the Queen the Princess used to embarrass everybody by going along to the House of Lords while the bill was being debated. That year there was a heat wave in London, and she used to fall asleep during the debate. And this led to there being accusations. The bill accused her of adultery with her courtiers. This led to a rhyme which was very popular in London at the time. "Her conduct at present no censure affords. She sins not with courtiers, but sleeps with the lords." And eventually, after they'd broken up, when Napoleon died on St. Helena as a British prisoner, one of the courtiers rushed into the king and said, "Sire, sire, may I congratulate you? Your greatest enemy is dead." To which the king replied, "Is she, by God, is she?" But back to Camilla. Neville Wran said in 1999, I remember debating him about this on several occasions, he would always bring this up in debates about the Republic, if you vote no, you're voting for King Charles and Queen Camilla. And they had a brochure with a caricature of the two, and the argument was, don't vote no because you'll get this result. Of course, it didn't work because Australians are far too sensible to vote on that basis. But things are changing. The Republican Cathy Lett, for example, who's the wife of the Republican Queen's Counsel, does that work? Geoffrey Robertson used to say some very nasty things about the royal family, and we've got them in a video on our site if you want to look at it. But she endorses Camilla. Tom Keneally, who went overboard in his attacks, in his mockery, not only of the royal family, but also of monarchists, who said famously of the Queen during the referendum campaign that she is a colostomy bag on the body politic, now regrets the mockery that he committed of the royal family and of monarchists, and thoroughly endorses Camilla. But the point is, the ultimate judge of Camilla is not Cathy Lett, not Tom Keneally, not Neville Wran, not even Frank Arena, nor is it journalists, nor is it, with respect, you or me. It's those two fine young men who adored their mother and who thoroughly endorse Camilla as the wife of Prince Charles. Prince Harry saying, she's tops, she's tops. So my next question, ladies and gentlemen, is, will Camilla be Queen of Australia? To which my answer is, no, she never will be Queen of Australia. Now, normally the wife of a king becomes the Queen Consort. That is the common law. Men receive no title. It has to be granted to them. So Albert became the Prince Consort. There was talk, I remember at the time, even though I was very young, I still remember, talk of Philip becoming King Consort, but that didn't happen. No title was accorded to him, apart from the title he previously had before the marriage. So men don't receive a title. Now, it was said at the time of the marriage that Camilla would become the Princess Consort on the succession. I believe that it is within the power of the king, a king, to declare what the title of his wife shall be. I think it's a matter of the royal prerogative. That is the power that the king has. Now, I would suggest that probably most lawyers would agree with me, though I noticed that Republican royal watcher in Melbourne, Barry Everingham, disagrees with me, but I'm sure that causes you no concern. So it seems as though, with the current approval of Camilla, that she probably won't become the Princess Consort, and may well become the Queen Consort. Whatever she does, the question is, will she become the Queen of Australia? No, she won't. The title in Australia is governed by legislation in Australia, the Royal Style and Titles Act. The Queen, at the time of her coronation and until 1953 in Australia, was Her Majesty Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, of Great Britain, Ireland, and the British dominions beyond the seas, Defender of the Faith. In 1953, after the London Conference, when it was agreed that the realms may adopt separate titles, this reflected the preamble of the Statute of Westminster, legislation was introduced by Sir Robert Gordon Menzies and approved by the Queen and the Parliament that she would become Her Majesty Elizabeth II by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom, Australia, and her other realms and territories, Queen, head of the Commonwealth, and defender of the faith. Now, in 1973, Mr. Whitlam proposed a change to that. It's usually, or often said in biased press, that he introduced the title of Queen of Australia. He did not. Sir Robert Menzies did that. But what Gough Whitlam did was introduce legislation which was approved by the Queen, Her Majesty Elizabeth II, by the grace of God. Gough tried to remove those words, by the grace of God, but the Queen insisted. She said, I reign by the grace of God, and that must stay in my title. Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen of Australia, her other realms and territories, head of the Commonwealth. Gough got out Defender of the Faith, but that is a British title. No Australian title has ever been conferred on the spouse of a sovereign. When Prince Charles succeeds, he will, under this legislation, be the King of Australia. But of course, as Neville Wran threatened or predicted, the fact is that Camilla, or they will be referred to as the King and Queen of Australia. That will be common parlance, but it will not mean anything. It will not mean anything in law. She will not be the Queen of Australia. She will be the Queen Consort, not the Queen Consort of Australia, just the Queen Consort, or the Princess Consort, if that is maintained. I don't think that will happen. I think that they will move more towards Queen Consort. So, in summary, firstly, who is Prince Charles? Remember, in 2008, he's the man so interested in charities for the disadvantaged, for the environment, for buildings and the maintenance of our heritage. He's the man in 2008 raised over $250 million for charity. Billion, not million. And he does that every year in British currency. Secondly, is he important? He's important to the governance of Australia. He's not crucial because it's the Crown which is crucial. The incumbent isn't, but it's important to have a wonderful man like him. Thirdly, will he succeed? Yes, he will succeed. Will Australia become a republic? No, it won't. Camilla will be Queen Consort or Princess Consort, as is decided. Will she be Queen of Australia? No, she will not be Queen of Australia. May I end with the words of a great hymn. Among our ancient mountains and from our lovely vales, oh, let the prayer re-echo, God bless the Prince of Wales. Thank you.